I'm so excited to be here with Megan, talking to you all about stress and autoimmune and how to really support this naturally through food and herbs and all of the things. I know this conversation is going to be really rich. We'll dive into a little bit more about who we are if we haven't met yet, and we'll just kick right off. So, Megan, if you would love introducing yourself and telling the peoples all about you and your background and what you do.
You bet. Yes, Taylor, I'm super excited to be here with you today. And this is going to be such a juicy conversation. So, I am Megan Magee. I am a registered nutrition and dietetic tech. I am a certified mind body eating coach. My practice is Nourish Nutrition Consulting. I am virtual. And really, my passion in the work that I do is supporting women and autoimmune conditions or any chronic health changes. And we are in an epidemic of autoimmune. And my passion is just bridging that gap. So often we're given a health diagnosis, we're aware of that health change. Maybe we're told here's some medication that we're going to use. And then that's kind of the end of the conversation. And my clients come to me barely functioning, barely getting through their day. They recognize they still don't feel well. So they may have that diagnosis, they may be using medication, but they are not thriving. And that's what lights me up. That's where my passion is truly bridging that gap. There's so much we can do to support the body in functioning as close to optimal as possible, even when there is a health goal or a health challenge. And Taylor, what I love is that you and I support our clients in very different ways, but also very similar ways. And so we have so much in common that, again, I'm just thrilled to be here and to get to spend some time and to really dig into this conversation around stress and autoimmune and inflammation and all the good stuff that we're going to get into.
Yes, we are very similar, like-minded. And the second that Megan and I met and had conversations, we knew we would want to bring these conversations to the public to just, there's so much that we can empower ourselves with by just tapping into experts in this space, such as Megan and I, and getting different views and just listening in on some of the conversations because, yeah, it's going to be juicy. So, probably more to come as well. But autoimmune and stress is also just, it touches my world as well. So if we're just meeting for the first time or coming back, well, good to see you again. My name is Taylor Short, and my company is Harmonious Return. I am an intuitive herbalist, which means that I work with herbs to make medicine, the earth's medicine, which is so incredible. And I blend both my intuition as well as the science. So I say I blend the sacred and the science, the head and the heart, to really find herbs and earth medicine to support you. And holy cow, are herbs like so incredibly undervalued? First of all, there are absolutely ways that you would want to work with an herbalist by using them, and there's protocols that you would go into, and we can talk a little bit about this later. But I have been personally blown away by not only using herbs myself for stress support, hormonal support, things that we'll touch on today, but also seeing the results in my clients who typically are most all of them are highly sensitive people, empathic people, and very open energetically. And what I also see in that space is chronic stress is also kind of comes hand in hand,
Yeah.
for better or worse. It's just kind of the state of the world that we're in. And then also there is quite a bit of autoimmunity that I see as well. And so, yes, Megan and I were like, we absolutely need to have this conversation to start talking about what's really happening and how can we support this in a way that feels really natural to our systems and also supportive because like Megan had mentioned, you had mentioned, Megan, just like being able to just like get a diagnosis and then maybe you're throwing some medication and then what? Like it's a very much a complex lifestyle and situation that you get into when you're dealing with some of these longer term chronic challenges, I guess I would say. And so really excited to be diving into this conversation. Um, And just so you all know, I've got Megan over here and then I'm looking at my outline here. So we're having a conversation, but we have to have some flow. So if you see me looking here, that's what we're doing. But should we just dive right in?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, perfect. Um, so we really wanted to start talking about too, like what is actually happening in our system. And we couldn't talk about everything possibly today, but some key points about what's actually happening in your body, in your system, when stress is meeting autoimmune conditions, right? This kind of perfect storm or something, if you will, like what's really going on. And I'm going to really just touch on some of these high level, and we can always dive in deeper if you all are interested in learning more about these conversations, because these are deep, deep topics. But just to give you a little bite-sized information. So let's talk more about what's happening in your nervous system in relationship to your immune system. When we're talking about immune systems, they are very much interrelated. We've kind of all heard about the gut brain axis probably, but what we're now finding also is there's a brain immune triangle that's actually happening. They're all three very interconnected. Everything's interconnected. But stress isn't just something that's emotional. A lot of times we'll kind of brush off stress as like, oh yeah, I'm so stressed. We've got all of these things going on. But chronic stress is a huge red flag, if you ask me, in our systems to really start paying attention to, because that is like, if it's going on for so long, even at like a lower level, it's kind of a red flag tee off to your system that starts to cascade to all of the other systems in your body, which we'll talk about today, including your immune system. So when you're in chronic stress, your nervous system is thinking like, I'm stuck in this fight or flight. Even though we might not realize it because we've maybe acclimated to feeling like we're in this fight or flight and that's normal, it's really what it's doing is it's keeping our body on high alert and as if something is always a threat that's going on in the background. Um, and when you're in autoimmune state or system, or challenges, what's happening is this high alert system is really causing confusion within the immune system. It's starting to kind of like misread what's happening in your body, and everything's a threat. That's kind of what it's looking at. And so it can start to attack itself, as we start to see in the autoimmune system. And the vagus nerve also plays a really big role in here that we talked about in this triangle. Just for simplicity terms, I'll just say it can become suppressed. We need our vagus nerve to be functioning properly, all of our systems, but it can become suppressed as our other systems can when we're in chronic stress. And so you can just see the cascade of events that are happening there. I'll just pause for a sec. Is there anything, I know we kind of parsed these out differently. Is there anything you want to add to that, Megan?
Yeah, so good. The one thing I'll just expand on is just a little bit more around vagus nerve, which I talk about a lot. And I love that you started to lean into that. So yeah, your vagus nerve runs really from your brainstem through your center line and through, your core, through your digestive tract, has so much to do with body regulation. And that vagus nerve sends messages top to bottom and bottom to top. And more of the messages are actually going from the bottom up, if you will. So when our vagus nerve is not communicating with the body, our systems really become impacted. And so, Taylor, you're spot on with all of this conversation, this chronic fight or flight that we're in. It's like the bear's chasing us 24/7, and we've just kind of acclimated. You're right. Oh, yep, the bear's there. And in fact, I find that so often we almost give beaucoup or props, if you will, to people. Oh, you're busy. Right on. Good for you. It's almost like a badge of honor these days. Look at me. I'm so busy. I'm juggling so much. I'm overdoing.
Mhm.
Not how our bodies are meant to function. And we have adapted in the ability to do that, that our bodies still haven't adapted. And I think this is a huge piece of why we are in the epidemic of autoimmune. Because even though we're accustomed to the go, 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 and that bear chasing us 24/7, our bodies are never going to adjust to that. Our bodies are meant to have short duration, maybe high intensity stress, episodes of high intensity, but short duration, not this dull chronic stress all day long, plus the acute stressors on top. Our bodies can't handle it.
Mhm. Yeah, you're absolutely so spot on. And like, I never like to be alarmist, but I mean, it's like when you and I have been in this space, it is really, I think, a balance of really being brutally honest, especially when it comes to stress, because it's something that we can brush off, but it is almost critical, like for our health, especially as women long term. We just really need to be really mindful of our chronic stress because it can lead to really honestly debilitating autoimmune disease situations that, I mean, will take a long time to recover from. So that's what we'll get into talking about is like the foods and the herbs and the ways that we can support this. But yes, if we can just break up with that whole badge of honor of being so busy and really like, oh my gosh, this is something I really should be addressing. And believe me, I'm speaking to myself just as much as, I do my clients. It's like, I'm
Yes.
hearing this for myself too. I'm sure you do. Yeah, for sure. Okay, should we move on? Keep
Yeah,
going?
I want to say one last thing real quick.
Mhm.
Um, and yes, Taylor, I love how we are hearing it ourselves too. But, research proves that within 5 years prior to diagnosis of an autoimmune condition, there has been some type of life trauma or life event. Maybe it's not a full trauma. Again, our stress tolerance has changed, something that's pretty impactful. We can kind of compartmentalize these days. Oh, that wasn't that big of a deal. But the body doesn't know the difference. And again, when you think back to the last 5 years or maybe 5 years to your diagnosis, if you viewers today watching have autoimmune, there's a direct relationship. And it's one of the questions I ask all of my new clients as they come to work with me is tell me about, 5 years prior to diagnosis. And I've heard it all. I've heard it all. I lost my job. I went through a horrific divorce. I lost a loved one. I had sexual trauma, whatever. But yes, um, our bodies don't, I guess I'll say, compartmentalize the way maybe our brains do. Oh, well, that was just a situation and now I'm moving forward. I'm okay. Yeah, it was stressful. But our bodies, our cells remember and our cells hold on to it. And again, it's a big piece of where we're moving into these chronic health changes.
Yes. Yeah, it's a slow burn
Yeah, slow burn.
us into
Yeah,
inflammation.
yeah.
Did you see how I did that?
That was beautiful. So yes, let's talk about inflammation, Taylor. This is
Yes.
this is what lights me up. I love
I
this
know,
part.
right? All these things. You guys are probably like, oh my gosh, they're such nerds, but these are the women that you want working with you because we get nerd out on this type of stuff. But
You.
inflammation, I'm sure that most everyone has probably heard of inflammation at this point in time, and it very much so in this day and age is seen as a very big enemy, which I think is just a little bit of an option for a reframe here. Like the inflammatory response in our bodies is actually something that is critical to the way that our systems work. And it's very similar to our stress response. Like we need to have those stress responses. We need to have inflammation response that happens in our bodies as well. But just like the chronic stress, we need it to also turn off. So what happens, it's kind of like, I'll just give an example of a fever. Like when you are sick, you have a virus, your body naturally has a defense system. It will go into a fever to heat up your system to fight off that virus, right? That is a natural thing that's happening. And the same thing goes for inflammation. Now, we don't live in the most healthy society that has really great foods and practices and lifestyles and things. So, again, systematically, what we're seeing is with this epidemic of autoimmunity is also chronic inflammation. And really, this is, I mean, it's hard to even say which one is more important, in this day and age, because they're all so important. But inflammation is one where they will say, this is a very big precursor to almost all disease, is they're seeing that we all have this inflammation in our systems. Were you going to say something?
No, I
Okay,
just
I
a
just
hundred
kind of see what.
percent. Yeah, 100% agree with that. Yeah, I mean, inflammation is really the crux of any health change at this point. And so it's a word that gets thrown around. I know you're going to dive into a little bit more of defining inflammation more, but yeah, it's a word that also gets thrown around that I don't think everyone understands. And your example, the fever was a great one. Yeah.
Mhm.
The body's
Yeah.
response. It's a protective mechanism initially. Yeah.
It totally is, right? And then we can start to see different things, different foods can cause inflammation in our body, which we won't really dive into all of that today. But what happens too when we're looking at chronic stress, when we're looking at autoimmunity, is the inflammation switch can kind of get turned off. And so it's just staying on, which causes a rise in that inflammation, that fire that keeps burning, because it is a heat that's happening in your body. And it starts to damage your tissues instead of healing it when a normal inflammatory response would be happening. And so your body's trying to help, but there's something in your system that's saying, like, I'm stuck in on. And so this, if you guys aren't catching on, which I'm sure you are, but again, just to repeat, like if one system is overactive, it's going to impact every single one. So your brain system, your endocrine system, your immune system. We're just getting all of these things that start to kind of function on a different level. You'll see sluggishness in different areas, which we'll talk a little bit about too. But what we really want to do is we're not moving to get rid of inflammation completely. We're trying to rebalance your system overall so that it works properly, and that it's not just stuck in that on position. So, anything else you want to add to inflammation?
Yeah, no, that was beautiful. I mean, inflammation at the end of the day, it's really a signal. And that
Hmm.
initial signal is like your check engine light on your vehicle being on.
Hmm.
But I mean, that's even a great analogy. I use a car analogy in
Yes.
regards to the body a lot. Just this is our vehicle, right? But so you have a
Mhm.
choice. If your check engine light comes on the dashboard of your car, do you keep driving?
Mhm.
Do you put a band-aid over the check engine light so you just don't see it anymore?
Mhm.
Or do you take it to the mechanic, get it diagnosed, have it serviced, have it tuned up, if you will, and then you're back on the road in a functional car? It's the
Mhm.
same idea as our bodies. And so often we miss some of those steps along the way. Maybe we put the band aid on. Oh, my joints just hurt again. So I just take Advil 3 times a day, every day. That's a lot. Don't do that. But um, we start to, oh, I'm just too busy to deal with it. I'll figure it out later.
Mhm.
Or, it's there, but it's not severe enough. I'm just going to power through. Life is busy. I don't have time to address this. So we miss some of those steps along the way, like when that check engine light is just turning on, and then we have the major breakdown, right?
100%. Yeah.
And that's the body. The body is all systems. And Taylor, you said it. One system is offline, the whole body gets thrown offline.
Mhm.
It's not just a mono condition and a mono system, meaning one to one. It's a full body experience. Everything gets impacted. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. See how we can talk about this forever. This is what
Yeah.
we geek out on. I
Oh,
love it.
good. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm like, I'll stop talking about that now. We'll come back to it. Okay, I'm so excited. So Megan's going to talk more about cortisol and relation also to insulin, which is, oh my gosh, so important. So yeah, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this.
Yes. It's in my world, and I'm not trying to simplify, but where my brain goes first so often in the conversation as I begin working with my autoimmune clients, or really any client, whether it's menopause or a chronic health change. Obviously, number one is inflammation. What's causing the fire to burn? What are we doing to fan the fire that it's exploding, if you will. But the next piece of that puzzle is really, I'm going to use a simple word of blood sugar, and I'm going to walk through what I mean by that. But I think this is so much around how do we begin to manage inflammation? How do we really begin to get our bodies back online? So the first piece of the puzzle is cortisol. Most of us have heard that word as well. Cortisol is the hormone that we secrete to manage stress. The catch is like any hormone, we need the right balance. Too little or too much, and things backfire. So cortisol itself, we need it. It's important for our sleep. It's important for our stress response, our energy. But the problem is because we are now chronically stuck in fight or flight, that bear is chasing us 24/7, we are dumping cortisol. That cortisol itself, that hormone, when we're secreting too much, in itself is fat storing and inflammatory. So simply right there, high stress, high cortisol directly puts us in a fat storing mode, which is relevant for weight management, but also that is the first point of inflammation. If we're dumping that high level of cortisol, it's going to start impacting our blood sugar regulation. And this doesn't have to be a conversation around diabetes. Maybe someone has pre-diabetes or diabetes. That's not even what I'm always talking about. It's how our body's using our food as fuel, and are we burning or storing? So when we eat, the pancreas secretes insulin to convert food to fuel. That's normal. Again, insulin is another hormone. We need it in the right balance. It is a messenger. It signals what to do. I take food, I make energy. It's a signal. But insulin, if secreted in the wrong way, is fat storing and inflammatory. And if we're secreting the wrong balance of insulin, it's going to start impacting our blood sugar, which means more often we're going to have higher blood sugars leading to prediabetes and diabetes. But insulin and blood sugar dysregulation, I mean, there's so much. We could have a 3-month conversation around this topic. So I'm just hitting top points. But insulin itself will dysregulate your appetite. Insulin shuts off digestion. So if our body is in a state of stress, we can't digest. So if someone has an autoimmune condition, 90% of the time they also have gut issues. And your immune system's in your digestive tract. And so again, we have to start connecting all the pieces, if you will, upstairs that are feeding us. If we have heartburn every day and we're chronically constipated and bloated, yeah, we can take the Tums, the Pepcid, and whatever else, but that's not the issue. It's what's going on upstairs. So stress is impacting the cortisol, which is impacting the insulin and our blood sugar, which is impacting our digestion, our appetite. There's such a big cascade there. But I'll tell you what, when it comes to autoimmune, I don't know that I've ever met anybody with autoimmune who doesn't have GI issues, and it all fits together. I have high stress leading to inflammation. I end up with an autoimmune. All of this is also impacting my gut integrity. My immune system is in my gut. We have a huge matrix here. And at the end of the day, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Sure. Oh, I had high inflammation. That put stress on my body. So then I started pushing more cortisol. It doesn't matter where it starts, but this is the essence of how we take ownership. And just that, we can take ownership and engaging the body to do what it needs to do, including managing autoimmune. Doesn't mean necessarily curative, but reducing that inflammation and helping the body to thrive as close to optimal as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good. And I will say too, it's interesting because I know you've heard of this too, but there's kind of like a hormonal hierarchy, which I don't know that a lot of people are aware of, to be honest. But when I work with women in perimenopause, it's like we're always focused on the sex hormones that are at the top, if you will, or the smallest part of the hormonal, or excuse me, the pyramid. And
Yeah.
so you're talking about your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, but at the bottom, like the most functional and the start of the hormonal importance is cortisol and insulin. So that's
Yes.
why it's so important to start there, because as Megan and I are talking about, it's like these cascade. So that's, and we won't get into like the HRT thing, but when we're looking at that, it's like we're missing so much of the point when we're
Right.
not addressing. And that's why it's so important for us to have this conversation around stress and
Yes.
autoimmunity, because it is the foundational, really, pieces to so many other issues. So I love that you're talking about just both of these pieces that are so important, and I think often overlooked, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I'll add one more layer on the blood sugar piece. So insulin, blood sugar. Um, so many of my clients are perimenopause and menopausal and aging. I'm aging, we're all aging. But, if I were to say from an anti-aging perspective, what's going on today in your health is what's going to be going on 20 to 30 years from now. So whatever age you are, add 30 years. Okay. So if we're thinking in that lens, how do I take care of myself today for healthy aging in 30 years from now? I'm going to say the two biggest pieces, and really it's one, but the two biggest pieces are reducing inflammation, which means getting your blood sugar and insulin regulation and therefore cortisol all under control, because that's where the initial breakdown begins, in my opinion. Big time,
Hmm. A
big time.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And you will hear that consistent, yeah, with people who are in the holistic realm, because it is. It's like
Mhm.
those starting pieces. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, so good. Um,
Yeah.
are you ready to kind of dive into the foods that can really
Yes.
help versus maybe even harm? I don't know if you want to go into that, but I know I'm really excited to hear about the different foods that can really help to support, and maybe the ones that might be a little problematic too.
So I'm going to lean into this. I'm very excited about this part, and I'm going to lean into this conversation in a few different ways.
Okay.
So I want to talk about things that could be aggravators. I want to talk about things that can be supportive, kind of speak to both sides of this conversation. And I'll also say, I very much believe in bioindividuality. So I believe what works for one person isn't necessarily what works for another person. And not every autoimmune condition is the same. And even below that or beneath that, this is why I do a lot of blood work with my clients, because I want to see biochemically what does our bodies need. So as I share this conversation around foods, these are great starting points around food. But I also have a lot of clients who will come see me and be like, Megan, I tried that already. It didn't work. Yeah, I get it, because sometimes we only have pieces of the puzzle and not the whole picture, right? So let's start with what I'll call I'll use the word dirty dozen, but I don't mean dozen. So just kind of the foods that can impact us negatively. So my biggest thought in this way: gluten, dairy, soy, sugar, nightshades. So I want to lean into this for just a minute. And we hear a lot of this. So if you have autoimmune, if you have chronic health change and you've Googled any of these things, probably it's come up, but gluten's probably the biggest one. Our seed is genetically modified. Our soil's so overcultivated. The wheat crop today is not the crop that I grew up with. It's not the crop most of us grew up with. Therefore, we cannot digest it. Our body doesn't know how to process it. There is research that suggests no one can actually digest gluten in this day and age. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have symptoms, but it does mean it's hard on your body. And if we're putting things in that our body cannot process, or our body doesn't know what to do with it, this is where we can start seeing more inflammation. Dairy is controversial. If we can find good, high quality sources of dairy and you don't have a dairy sensitivity, I am okay with that. But for many of us, dairy is very inflammatory. It's also a digestive impactor, very much linked to constipation, linked to sinus and allergies. So again, we just have to think of each person as an individual. Soy also very processed, and it's an estrogen, which most of us don't need more exposure to estrogens. And then nightshades are a mixed bag. I definitely see with more arthritic conditions, nightshades can be controversial. So nightshades are deeply pigmented fruits or vegetables that have been shown to build inflammation. And my rheumatoid clients, I usually do recommend they eliminate nightshades. And I hear a lot of feedback. Yeah, when I eat bell peppers, I definitely can feel it in my joints. Or if I eat tomatoes, I feel it. Okay. But there's also absolutely good things we can be including on a daily basis to help reduce that inflammation. So obviously vegetables are a big one, a little bit of fruit there, and especially organic sources. So we're not getting more toxic load put in. That toxic load, if we're doing not organic, so herbicides, pesticides, antibiotics, those are putting stress on our body and that can kick the light switch on for autoimmune. So, a variety of fruits and vegetables give us phytochemicals, antioxidants, fiber, essential fatty acids. I think are so important. These are foods that are natural anti-inflammatories. Things like fish, nuts and seeds, avocado, good quality clean oils, olive oil, avocado oil, and coconut oil. Olives, those good fats all work as anti-inflammatory. So looking at our diet, are we eating those with regularity? Maybe we are, maybe we're not. I love the idea of using spices and teas. There are wonderful spices that are natural anti-inflammatories, turmeric, ginger. There's wonderful digestive teas out there, for example, peppermint, for example. There's different ways to play with food and Taylor, especially as you get into more around herbs and things like that. These things can be more food-based, even where we're cooking with these spices, we're drinking teas. Maybe we're doing something like I am on board with juicing. Now, when I think of juicing, I'm thinking like 80 to 90% vegetable with like 10% juice. In mainstream world, when I hear about juicing, it's like all fruit with a splash of spinach. No, that's not what we're talking about because you end up with all that sugar load. But there's different ways to lean in and deeply nourish our bodies to give our bodies what it needs at a cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
That cellular level is what either protects us or allows things to turn, if you will. And again, I think bioindividuality is a big piece on that as well. Yeah.
So amazing. Oh my gosh, I could listen to you talk for all. I'm just like taking it all in and thinking about, yeah, just all of the different ways. Mm, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I love hearing about that. And yeah, hmm. I don't really have anything to add to that. Yeah.
So I
Um,
think it's also just taking that ownership. I mean, and there's so much we could get into sugar, which obviously is very inflammatory and stressful. There's so much more to it, but that's just kind of a quick snapshot. And so I do believe food can be our primary medicine or our primary poison.
yes.
I also believe one of my favorite sayings, if you spend time with me, is the dose makes the poison. So
Mm,
do I really have a problem if you want to go to McDonald's? No, the dose makes the poison. If that's like your jam and once a month you want to go to McDonald's, well, then fine, great. The dose makes
yeah.
the poison. If every day we're consuming these foods that are putting more stress on the body and we're not getting the nourishment,
Yes.
yeah, the cells are going to change. The body's going to respond to that. Yes.
Yeah. I love that so much because it is like, yeah, I think oftentimes too, especially when you're talking about people with chronic illness, you oftentimes hear they're just so exhausted from just going around, with so many, it's just a lot. It's overwhelming. And so like having that flexibility too is nice. And like you don't have to be perfect in all of this. And
No.
yeah, um the dose aspect of it is really important when it comes to especially food. It's like we have
Yeah.
to eat food. So so
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, how do you do that? I love that.
Yeah.
Um and
Tell, yeah,
yeah.
Taylor, tell us a little bit more from your lens as you think about herbs and different ways to play into that in the anti-inflammatory lens.
Yeah, I love all of this. I'm very passionate myself about natural health and just in general. And I really do believe that plants can heal us, like whether we're eating them or, taking them as medicine. So, and I very much resonate with what you're saying, Megan, on the bio-individuality, because it is so important when we're talking about using herbs as medicine. And there's so many caveats that I could say, not to scare anybody, but it's really important when we're talking about using herbs as medicine, is
Mhm.
to honestly work with an herbalist.
Amen.
Because,
Absolutely.
yeah, when we're
Yeah.
taking a tea every now and again, you really can't do any harm, and it's really probably very good for you. But when you're working on something medicinally with herbs, you can very much out of balance your system even further if you're kind of self-prescribing. So I'll just leave that there. I talk a lot about this, and what I do when I'm working with clients is very similar to what you do, Megan. It's like we're looking at your constitution, meaning like, are you someone who runs hot? Are you someone who runs cold? Are you dry? Do you carry extra water? Like we're looking at all of the things and coming up with herbs that will be amazing for you. Medications, supplements, the other things that you're on, your stress levels, all of these things are so important to know when we're working with herbs because we want a protocol that's going to be perfect for you. And then what my hope is to get you to a place where we're doing kind of concentrated. I usually work with people for 3 months to get on things like this to
Mhm.
really get you working consistently with herbs because herbs are so amazing before we get into the individual herbs, but they are so amazing. I really think everyone should always be taking herbs. If you ask me, like the deeper I get into this, I'm just like, how are we all like we are massively underutilizing herbs, to be honest.
Yes.
But um, they really are very gentle, very different from pharmaceuticals or even supplements when we're pulling out a single compound. Herbs are whole body, they're working with the whole plant. And so I'll just say it in like my own like magical terms is herbs have all of these different constituents and compounds within them when you're working with them to kind of go into your entire body and system and almost know what they need to balance out. Like it is that amazing. It will not work the same. If Megan and I are having similar symptoms, if we're on the same protocol, we're going to have very different reactions to how the herbs work for us. And so, herbs are incredible. As you can tell, I'm so on the herb train, obviously. This is why I'm doing it. But um, that being said, I think there is almost a trend these days of like, oh, Google herbs for autoimmune disease, Google herbs for stress. And I think that that's amazing that we're being more empowered and learning how to work with herbs. But if you really want to have herbs work for you medicinally, I would highly recommend working with an herbalist. So I'll get off my little soapbox and talk about that a little bit more. Um, and talk about some of these herbs that can be so freaking supportive. Um, and I'll talk about them in categories. And just as Megan said, it's always like, but some of these might have, a different effect for people,
Yeah.
especially when we're
Yep.
looking at autoimmune disease, because
Mhm.
um, some of these do work with your immune system. And depending on what's happening, we don't want to exacerbate, a
Mhm.
situation that's happening. So we just want to be really cautious about how we're easing into that as your body starts to rebalance and adjust. But the first one that I really want to talk about is a single herb because I am writing a book on him right now. And I say, yes, it's a him because he comes through me masculine. I communicate with plants. That's my woo woo side, but is stinging nettle. And I just have to call him out because I'm almost like three-fourths of the way through the first draft of this manuscript, and everyone should be taking stinging nettle. He really is one of the ones where I'm like, for the most part, there are different contraindications, which is what we call them, in there for certain types of people who he probably wouldn't be good for, but he is in the category of what we call a nutritive herb. And nutritive herbs are just one step up in safety from food grade level. So they're very generally very, very safe and jam packed, you guys, with nutrients and minerals. Like so much so, nettle has also been called a superfood in its own sense. And so I will be out there after this with a sign. I always say a sign on a cardboard box that says everyone should be taking stinging nettle because it is just that incredible. But it on a cellular level can really start to replenish, especially people who are having autoimmune responses. And he is amazing at anti-inflammatory, amazing for the neurological system. I mean, you can read more in my book if you want to when it comes out, but I had to start with him. The second one I want to talk about the category is nervines. So nervines are really symbiotic to the nervous system. And I love to work with very gentle herbs in general because I am working with so many people who are highly sensitive. And I'll just throw out a few here, and these can go in different categories as well. But a lot of us know lemon balm. Lemon balm is very safe herb and just beautiful to gently support anxiety, gently support depression, just an overall kind of uplifter and helping to what I like to see, especially with people who are dealing with chronic stress, is herbs are like your little helpers behind the scenes, just taking a little bit of the weight off of all that you're holding. It's not do this instead of lifestyle. We'll talk about that at the end, but it's just a gentle support. Oat straw is also amazing. Oat straw is a nervine and it's also a nutritive. Um, Obviously, you'll have some sensitivities maybe there if you have celiac, but we can talk more about some of the nuances there. And then skull cap is one of my favorites. I'm just going to kind of power through some of these, and we can always chat more herbs if you all want to. Let's talk about the adaptogens. Adaptogens are like the hot topic when we come to the herb world, and adaptogens are so popular because we're also freaking stressed, and adaptogens help us adapt to stress. And I will say with a big caveat, this does not mean that we can take as much ashwagandha as we want and then continue to burn the candle at both ends. That is absolutely not how herbs work. I very much work with my clients and like this is a different lifestyle when we come into working with herbs. We're slowing down to nature's pace. We are coming into the rhythm of our body, you know, a more supportive rhythm than what Megan was mentioning in the beginning of this like rat race that we're on. So ashwagandha, I really did want to address up front. I talk a lot about ashwagandha because it is one of those pop culture herbs, I think right now, you know, sometimes they like hit at different times. And ashwagandha is an amazing herb, don't get me wrong. It is definitely not for everyone, especially when we're dealing with inflammation. Ashwagandha is a heating herb. So when we already have a lot of heat in our body, we do not want to add more fuel to the fire. If you are someone who runs hot, if you are someone who has red hair, if you just overall are someone who has kind of a hot constitution, gets pissed easily, I am in this category of people. So it's like, ooh, maybe ashwagandha is not the best for me, or we pair it with some cooling herbs. So we'll get into more of that, you know, if we wanted to work together on some of this. But one of the adaptogens that I really, really love that is much more gentle is holy basil or tulsi. And that is one of my favorite herbs out there. And I love to have it in a tea. So I'll mention that. And then let's talk about two more quick things. So lymphatic and then also anti-inflammatory. I will say a lot of these herbs that I already talked about have anti-inflammatory. So that's the cool thing with herbs is they have these different actions within them that can kind of be a both and there's a lot of substitutes as well. So that's what we look at is like, oh, maybe red clover wouldn't be good for you, but we could, you know, put something else in here. But lymphatic, so we want to look at, again, another system. How are we circulating? How are we detoxing our system? How are we getting the toxins out of our system, as well as anti-inflammatory? So some good ones there are calendula, red clover, and turmeric. We all know turmeric, and it's amazing for anti-inflammatory. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful herb, and you can cook with it, you can supplement it, you can do it for tea, you can do all of the different things. But again, it might not be for you in certain situations. So just keeping that. And then one last thing that I'll just mention is gut health. And there are so many different herbs in this sense that can really help as well. Bitters are something that can help to increase digestion. We won't go into that, but then there are also really amazing healing herbs that I use for a lot of my autoimmune folks or chronic stress folks who are dealing with gut issues, such as marshmallow is an amazing one. And then we're usually pairing in different herbs that I already mentioned to kind of get a blend that hits a lot of your different systems at once. Um, and I think that is good because that was a lot of herb talk for you. How are you doing?
So good though. So good. Yes. And as I work with my clients, I dabble between supplements and herbs. And that
Mhm.
is the piece that I love about herbs is there can be so many properties, and such a beautiful way, at the end of the day, uh, I have lots, I still have clients who come to see me and say, can we just do it with food? And I'll be honest, at this point, I don't think we can. I think we need that support. Our world is toxic. Our bodies are so stressed. Our food is not as nutrient dense as it used to be.
Mm.
And I wish I could say that food alone is enough,
Mhm.
but with all these other variables, it's not. And this is the beauty of where knowing individually what we need,
Yes.
but also working with different formulas that have a lot of properties. As a parallel, I mentioned fatty acids, even in like fish oil, right? It's an anti-inflammatory. It's great for your joints. It's great for your brain. It's great for your heart. It's great for weight, right? Like I love working with different formulas that have multi properties. So great.
Hmm. Yes, it's so great. And yeah, I think to have the both and I think to kind of round out to when Megan and I were talking about just what we wanted to share with you all for this conversation, I think not to overwhelm because I think that it can start to feel a little bit overwhelming. And that's why it is so amazing to work with practitioners. I mean, I'm sure Megan, you have too. I've worked with many, many practitioners in my day on my health journey. So that can also just help to kind of decrease some of the where do I start? What do I do?
Right.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
do think we wanted to leave you with at least two lifestyle pieces on additional pieces that we can bring in because it is not just about food. It is not just about herbs. It is also about the way that we're conducting our lives and really, in relation to stress. And
Yeah.
so, Megan, do you want to talk a little bit about just a way? I
Yeah.
won't give it away, but a way that we can handle this and work with
Yes.
this?
Yeah. So one of my favorite strategies, if you will, and I talk about this a lot, is deep breathing. And it sounds so simple. And it's kind of funny. Every time I talk about deep breathing with a client, in my brain, I kind of go, am I really having this conversation again? Because we're all breathing or we wouldn't be sitting here. But we are not deep breathing. Our breath is very shallow. Research proves the number one way to turn down cortisol, the number one way to quiet your nervous system and to tell your body you're safe and there's not a bear chasing you
Mhm.
is deep breathing.
Mhm.
And we don't do it, right? And so this also has to do with your vagus nerve. Remember, we talked about the vagus nerve, how it runs through your central line. It's so important to body regulation. Diaphragmatic breathing is one of the best ways to even support the tone of vagal nerve. And
Mhm.
so a breath practice, and I think it's also about, I don't want to tell you it has to look like this because there's one more should and one more thing on the to-do list, right? I think we have to take it all on as individuals of what is realistic for us.
Mhm.
But when I work with my autoimmune clients, I typically recommend 30 minutes of deep breathing a day. And that could be, again, you choose two 15-minute sessions. All right, every morning before I get out of bed, every night before I go to sleep. All right, I take, 10 minutes 3 times a day. Okay, I'll do 5 minutes, Every time I'm in the car and I'm at a red light, I breathe, I do my deep breathing. Every time I'm doing dishes, I listen to a song and do deep breathing. So you can bring it in a way that works for your routine. I don't want deep breathing to be one more to do, because one more to do is just raising our stress.
Mhm.
This is about quieting our bodies, right? But we are so busy in our days. We are so running from one thing to the next. We're using our brains. We're checked out of our bodies. This is why our body is stuck in that fight or flight. The breath work is so important. And I cannot, for my chronically ill clients, I can't emphasize it enough of creating a breath practice to slow down, which
Mhm.
feels so hard when we've got 1,000 things to do. And when we've been sick and we haven't felt well, and we've already been skipping over things. Now we have 30 minutes a day. We're supposed to lay around and breathe, right? I get that this is not actually easy. And a lot of my clients are like, yeah, whatever, Megan, I'll get to that. No, I think it's actually one of the bigger priorities. We have to get our bodies out of sympathetic into parasympathetic. So out of fight or flight into rest and digest,
Mhm.
and really rest, digest, and heal. If we are not in parasympathetic and we're stuck in sympathetic, this is autoimmune. This is why the body changes. This is why we don't feel good. So I
Mhm.
can't emphasize enough the power of deep breathing and creating a practice. And maybe you start with only 10 minutes a day and you work your way up to 30. That's fine.
Mhm.
Make it work for you, but it's diaphragmatic. So there's lots of different resources out there on breathing. I often think of it being equal counts of breath in and equal counts of breath out. Again, there's lots of different approaches with breathing out there. I don't actually care what diaphragmatic breathing you're doing, what counts you're doing. Just do it. Just do it is your answer.
Yes. I love it. I just started
Yeah,
deep breathing while you were talking.
love it. See,
I'm
well, that
sold. I'm sold. Yes, absolutely. I'm like, oh no, that was really, I mean, it's truly so important. And I'll often say it reminds me of what works is simple, but
yeah,
that does not mean it's easy. Like
doesn't
we
mean it's
have
easy.
to, we get to prioritize our health and our healing over all of this. And it
Yeah,
just reminds me of like, if we allow it, the world will just continue to pull us away. And it's just really, I feel just as we step further into ourselves is like really getting serious about prioritizing ourselves and our well-being first, and then the rest really falls into place so much easier from there. So I love the reminder of like, I mean, truly like the simplicity and the depth when you go back to deep breathing. So thank you so much for that. And that also kind of leads to,
it sure does. That was a good segue. Look how you did that, Taylor.
yes, right? Of
Yes,
just like this, I know we are on it. We are
yes,
on it. So
I love
good.
it. That was perfect.
Into just this thought, this remembering, this re-remembering of the things that we talked about today is really about lifestyle shifts. And anytime you work with people in natural medicine, holistic medicine, whole body healing, it's really about it's very different from allopathic medicine. We're not just putting a pill on a symptom, right? We are very much working towards whole healing. And with that, gosh, is it ever worth it? Oh my gosh, it's just like it brings people literally back to life. And also remembering it is a lifestyle that we're working towards. And it takes time to have patience. Some of these things, like just we were talking about the amazing practice of deep breathing. It can change your life. Literally, it can change your life. But it does, it's not a quick pill, it's not a quick fix. It's really about allowing these things to take place. So when you're working with things like chronic stress, with autoimmune challenges, chronic illness, these are absolutely solvable and healable naturally with food and with herbs, like we have talked about. it will take time. It will take relearning how to kind of do things that are going to be more sustainable. And it will last you the rest of your life, which is so incredible. Like Megan was saying earlier, it's like, think about what you're doing 30 years from now. We are setting ourselves up for so much more, but it does take time and it does really, I think, honestly, also takes support. Like it's really challenging to do things like this on your own. So
Absolutely.
we'll lead into that perfectly by sharing a little bit more about if you're interested in learning more about Megan and I and the work that we do with clients or how to follow us or stay connected. Megan, do you want to share more about where everyone can find you?
I would love to, yes. So again, my practice is Nourish Nutrition Consulting. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook. I am on Instagram. And so the other thing is my website, nourishnutritiononline.com. And if you head over there, you can learn more about my practice and how I work with clients. I do offer all clients a complimentary 15-minute phone call. So feel free to go to my website, schedule that complimentary 15-minute phone call, and just let's touch base. Let's talk about where you are in your health, what your goals are, what it would look like to work together. I don't do a one size fits all. None of my clients do the same thing. Everybody's an individual. How we work together is completely based on what your needs are. So again, my website is nourishnutritiononline.com. And then my handles, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, are it's all Nourish Nutrition Consulting.
Love it. Yes, and I'll make sure wherever this lands, I know this will land on our YouTubes, but we'll have it in the show notes as well,
Yep.
or the description. Um, and oh my gosh, absolutely. I was just like, am I following, making sure I'm following you? Here's my little rabbit, my little rabbit hole. But okay, so if you're interested, yeah, in the work that I'm doing, my business is Harmonious Return. And same, the handle is at Harmonious Return on YouTube. I'm on Instagram and YouTube pretty primarily. I am on Facebook as well. And then I do also, if anybody's on Insight Timer, I do have like meditations on there and stuff as well to check out. But yeah, if you want to work with me, I have a number of different ways that I work with people through custom herbal support. And then also I do earth intuitive readings as well. So you can check out some of that stuff on my website. But I'm always open to just having a quick conversation. So if you message me, if you want to email me, reach out. I'm pretty laid back in that sense. But yeah, I really do feel that the work that Megan and I are here to do is just opening up so much for so many people out there in ways that maybe haven't really been looked at before, to be honest. So if you all have any questions for us too, feel free to drop them below. We'll be happy to answer. And this is just
That.
so much fun to do. So
Yeah.
thank you for joining me today.
Yes. And Taylor, such a pleasure. And again, I love that, you and I share such beautiful vision of supporting our clients in health and just really the essence of there's so much more out there and you don't have to struggle. You don't have to be sick all the time. Even with a chronic health change, there's so much we can do. And that empowerment level of taking ownership and learning how to care for our bodies,
Mhm.
that's where the magic's at.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So good. Also, let us know if you guys want us to do another topic and drop it below, and then
Yes,
we'll
please.
get together again. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Until next time, we'll see you all soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.